Are you looking for some tips on how to start seeds for your vegetable garden or even flower garden? In this video, I'm going to continue on with our seed starting series on basically how to care for your seedlings before you transplant them into your garden. Hi, this is Jeremy Starke here from Green Thumb Gardener, here to give you some tips, tutorials, and reviews for all your gardening needs. In today's video, we're going to continue on with our seed starting series where before we had went through all the equipment, the soil that you would use for starting the seeds, as well as actually planting the seeds as well. We're going to assume that you've already done all of that and you have it in your seed starting tray and they've grown to just about the right height where you actually want to transplant them out of your out of the seed tray into its own little container. The reason why you actually want to do this is that you want to first make sure the seeds are going to germinate, and then you are basically putting them into another growing medium, and at that point they're actually ready to be kind of cared for a little bit, kind of go on the next step before you plant it. Now, certainly you can actually plant these and you can just plant them directly in your garden or your container. But if you're still kind of at the edge of where it's possible to plant things out in the garden, or they're just might be a little small, sometimes actually growing them a little bit in a controlled environment will give you a much better results for your plants. So in this video, we're gonna go over that. If you've been following us, I did go over two different methods before. The first method was basically just planting, one seed per seed tray pot, and I'll show you when we get into that section. The other one was more of an intensive seed kind of planting, where I literally just planted maybe 20 to 30 of the seeds in one little section. So I'll show you both ways. Really the materials that you're going to need for this is your actual seed tray. So if you haven't actually gotten to this point, you can check out, I'll post a link up there, and that will be for the playlist for the other parts. So if you have any questions about the equipment or soil or anything like that, you can actually go and refer to that. The only things that you're going to need is you're going to need some sort of container to put to transplant them in. You can go as fancy as going to get the ones at the store, or you can even get solo cups, as long as you want to make sure they have some drainage on the bottom. So you might have to, cut those, put a little hole in the bottom of it. The soil, and you can use the same recipe that I use, and I'll put another link up there for that video as well. And you can use that particular soil. You can also mix a little bit more compost in it if you want, but you don't have to do it right now. But we'll go through some of the care of after you do transplant and what you need to do. Before we get into it, if you could, please give us a green thumbs up and let us know that you like this video. Also, if you could, hit that subscribe button down below, hit the bell to get notified of any new videos that we do have. And we do have a website. It's right down in the show notes description right there. That's where we have all of our tips and everything. If you want to take a look at it out there, we have more tips organized out there for you. So now that we get that out of the way, let's get right into it. Okay, so we're going to actually get right into it as far as what you need to do. So by now, just to give you a recap of where you are, where you might be with your seed starting, is that you planted the seeds in here, whether you did one per little section, or if you did the intensive way. This method will work with both of them so that you can transplant them. The materials that you need to transplant them is just some type of container that you want to put these in before they actually go into your garden. You can plant these into your garden if you really wanted to, depending on the time of year that you have. So it could be warmer out now, and you can get these actually in there. But I like to let them grow a little bit more in a more controlled environment, just to make sure that they're more successful. Because you could have a late frost, and then you'd have to be scurrying out there to protect your plants for that. So I like to just kind of wait until I know it's pretty safe for it to go outside, as little seedlings. You can get these little biodegradable little pea pod things that they work all right. I just have a bunch of these lying around, so we'll throw a couple in there as well. The other thing I like is if you do a lot of planting, you can actually save the containers from other plants that you have, and you would just basically clean them out with just a very, very weak solution with just a little bit of bleach in it, just to clean everything out. The other one, you can also buy these. These are just little cups, and these are a little bit more sturdier, so that I can reuse these every year after I transplant them, because I like to reuse things, you know, if possible. I don't like to just throw them out. But these are great. They already have the holes on them, you know, for you to go. And they're not like super durable, but they're enough where I'm going to probably get a few years use out of them. So I like these. But if you don't have that, the other thing you could do is you can actually just grab just regular plastic cups. And what you'll want to do is you want to get a drill, and you want to probably do like maybe 3 holes in it. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. One of these. And obviously the holes are for the drainage. The holes are for the drainage of the water that you're going to be, you know, when you actually water your plants, your little seedlings. So you can use, there's a variety of different things that you can use, so don't let, you know, anything discourage you. If you're not really sure what to get, you know, you can always go with the plastic cups. It's very simple. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need some labels. Now, if you got a lot of plants, this is really good to do ahead of time, because you know, as you can see on my chart here, and this chart is actually available on one of our other videos too. So if you check out one of the earlier videos, I'll post the actual video up top. But this is just my chart here of just the ones that are in this particular one. So, you know, you have to be organized when it comes to this, because if you just have it all over the place, you know, just get some kind of organization system down. You don't have to be as complex, but it's not really that complex, but you don't have to get really detailed like I do. I just like spreadsheets. So, but you can just go really simple. And if you're planting, you know, this is, you know, that right there, and then you put another one in there, just so you know what it is. Because when you want to transplant these, you want to actually know what it is. Because if you have different varieties of tomatoes, you know, you have to know which ones are the bush tomatoes if you have those, and then you have to know the indeterminate ones, or the ones that grow up, you know, very tall. The other materials you're going to need is actual seed starting soil for this. Now, you can you can get this at the store. You can make a mix. You know, I have that in one of my other videos. Or you can buy a bag at the store and just use that particular soil for this. So I did go ahead and got my mix. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill up, you know, a bunch of these. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the pepper ones first. I don't have a lot of them. Some of them didn't germinate, and I think I didn't have a lot of seeds for the ones that I used. But let me get these all filled up. Okay, so now that you have it all filled up, you want to make sure that the seed starting soil mix that you use is actually dry. You don't want it too wet. And the reason is that when you transplant it, it's much easier to poke a hole in the dry medium. It gets in, you're able to put the plant in much easier when doing that. So I like to just make sure you're organized, keep everything all together, so that you're knowing which plant you want. So in this one, I'm actually gonna do the eggplant on the end, because I know that's where the Bangladesh eggplant is. So I have, let's see, I got 3 flowers here, 3 little seedlings here. So I'm gonna make sure I get my labels right here. All right, so I got 3 labels right here. I know where those go right here. So what I do is, be careful if you have any water in this, but I try to make sure this is empty the night before I actually do it, because I want it to be somewhat dry when I do pull this. Now, obviously, if it's a little wet, it's not going to be harmful or anything, but it just makes it easier when you're pulling this thing out. So what I like to do is, I don't know if it's kind of hard to see, is it's going to get a little messy here. So what I do is I push. I'm kind of squeezing the bottom of the tray down, and you can sort of see it pop out, the one that you want. And what I do is I kind of grab as gently as I can until it's freed. So as you can see, I have the actual plants right here. They're kind of a block of them right here. So, and then what I do next is, somewhere carefully, you can kind of break away the soil a little bit until you're just kind of left with one of them. All I do is I just make a little hole right in here, and I be careful not to really damage the stem itself. I like to also put as much soil up to the, so I'm going to get a little soil. I always like to put it right up to it so the leaves are actually right at the bottom of it. So it's just like that. So if you can see right here, you can see how it's really level with the soil. And that helps too if you kind of were late with putting a light over the seeds. I mean, it happens sometimes. You might not have noticed that some of them germinated. They get really leggy, what they call leggy. They actually stretch up to trying to look for the actual sunlight. It's not a bad thing. I mean, if they do get a little bit, it's fine. You can actually just do what I did here and transplant them into another one, and they typically grow fine. When they're really small seedlings, they take a lot of kind of wear and tear a little bit. Obviously, you don't want to break anything, but they seem to do really well. So if you mess up a little bit and they look a little bit leggy or they're tall, or like long stems, you know, this is a good way to kind of fix it. And then obviously you want to make sure you put your label in here. So we're not going to water right now. We'll do everything all together when we get it in its new home. So I have these other ones right here. So I'm going to carefully separate these as well as best as I can. And the only thing that gets tricky about some of this is when you, some of the roots, you want to make sure that you're just being careful. So, you know, sometimes you can just leave it out and you can actually kind of push it in with your thumb until it kind of gently goes in. And I just press around the dirt for that. Put my label on that one. That one's good to go. And then we got one more here. We'll put it in this cup. So I kind of just do a little hole with my finger. And, you know, then I'm pushing it down. And like I said, if you need to, you can put some more soil up to, so that the leaves, you don't want them like touching the soil, but you know, if it's closer, like if you had like a long one, then it's really good to get in there for that. So this is kind of how you do it. If you just had like one or two in here, you know, that's pretty simple to do. You can just pull one out. But let's do one that has quite a bit in here. And I just want to make sure that I'm being organized here. So I'm going to say I already did that one. My other eggplant, they never germinated. They were old seeds, so I think that's okay for that one. Okay, so the next one we have is Cherokee Purple. And looks like I have a lot of these ones. So I'm going to label these really quick. Let's see how many plants I got here. It looks like I have 10 Cherokee Purple in here. So I'm going to make 10 labels up, and I have to get 7 more little pots for that. Okay, so I have all my containers here. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to basically put it on its side. And, you know, like I said, this can get a little dirty, but that's what garden's all about. And then, like I said, I like to just kind of just pinch in the bottom of the container. And then I gently kind of see if I can wiggle it out by just pulling on the stem, just very, very gently, because you don't want to break the stem, of course. All right. So I'm going to put this over here. Let me actually put this out of the way so I have a little more room here. All right. All right, so as you can see, I got just a big block of the actual tomato. So what I do is I gently break it up, and this is why it's really important to have this kind of dry, because it would be very difficult to do this if it was wet. So I kind of just shake it a little bit just to get everything kind of going. And it's okay if some of the roots get a little kind of tangled here. We're going to straighten everything out for these guys. So just in case you're not sure when to do this, you really want to make sure that they actually have what's called their true leaves on there, which is, you know, I'll show you up here. See the true leaves, if you can see it, it's the third leaf right there. Is basically the little leaf that comes off of the second one. The first two leaves that come off, the first two leaves that come out, they're kind of they're called the Cotyledons, and those are like the food source for the actual plant before they really start growing. But you want to make sure that you get the true leaves when you do this. So what I like to do is basically you can either press a big hole in it, and then you can stuff it down You can even push this in all the way, because what the tomatoes is great is that they actually reroot from the actual stems that are up there. So like I said before, if these are a little bit long, you know, you can actually, they'll actually grow just fine. And then I just try to put as much, because I want the leaves close to the soil and as much as possible. So if you can see that, they're very close to the actual soil up there. So as you can see that they're like that. So that's perfect for that one. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just do all the other ones as well. And I'm gonna place each one in the hole so I know where it's gonna go after I separate them here. So it might be a little tricky when you're separating them. But you know, don't worry, just, I mean, they're very pliable. You know, as long as you don't damage the actual stem itself, and you know, they'll be fine. And also the new growth on it. So you don't want to, if you see any that has a damaged leaf up there, that's something that you don't, it's probably not going to grow, but sometimes you'd be surprised. So I just kind of separate everything out so I know what I'm working with here. And just be very gentle and kind of shake it around a little bit. And then I'm just going to put these all up here, just so I know what I'm working with. And another good thing is, if you do this method, the reason why I like it too is, you know, if you do, some of them don't germinate, or say you're transplanting them and you just hack at them or something, you know, that happens, I guess. But at least you have a bunch here, so you know you have something to work with. But I would be surprised if all of these should grow. I mean, I don't see any damage on any of the stems or anything. Well, it looks like I have an extra one, so I'm just going to put this guy in here with one of these guys, and then I'll just deal with them later. So again, what you can do is you can actually press it down with your finger, and I'll show you on another one here. So basically you're just pushing it in. That's another reason why this is really good when it's really dry, because you can just push it in much easier. Because if it's really wet, you're not going to be able to do this. You know, I'll just show you kind of how I do it. I just take it and I just push it in just like that until it goes all the way down. I'm making sure I get all the roots, and I want the leaves as close to the soil as possible. And then obviously it's going to grow bigger from that point when we water it and all that other jazz. All right, let me get all these planted up here, and I'll try to fast forward everything so you guys don't have to see everything. All right, so I have all these transplanted into its containers where they're going to grow a little bit further. So as I was saying, this is the perfect time to do this. Is usually I would say maybe 3 or 4 weeks after they germinate, and what you're looking for is the third leaf, which is the true leaf that you know that it's going to continue to grow. Before that, you don't really need to do anything with it. You don't want to add any kind of fertilizer at that point, because it actually is getting all of its energy from the two leaves, the cotyledons that do point out first. So it's not really necessary to do that. I always wait until I actually transplant them, and then I'll give them a very weak solution of usually a balanced fertilizer, no matter what plant they are. I just do a very, very broad base water fertilizer, water-soluble fertilizer. All right, so just so you know, for this, the simple care that you would actually need for the plants once you transplant them. So what I like to do is I basically just make sure they're watered. I don't want to water it too much. You want to make sure that you either have some type of lighting on it. Now, if it's later in the season for you, it's great to get them outside just to give them a little exposure to the sun if you can. But you want to be very careful about doing that. You actually want to gradually put them in the sun. Some people actually just keep them under their lights because it might be too cold for you to do that as well. Or if it's later in the season, you can just start putting them outside a little bit at a time, and then you'll be able to just gradually get them used to the sun. But if you have them indoors, you just want to make sure that you do water them regularly, and you want to add a weak solution of fertilizer for them, depending on their needs. So, it depends on what the actual vegetable is, because some vegetables prefer more of a nitrogen. But if you just give it a balanced mix, while it's a seed, that's going to do well for just about majority of all your plants. So make sure you do have that. Make sure you get an adequate lighting so that your lighting is at the right setting for it, because you don't want them to get leggy at this point. So you want to make sure that you have the right light for it. Once it gets acclimated, I'd say probably another month or so, or a few weeks in here, then you can go ahead and actually transplant it out into the garden, depending on when your actual last frost date is. So just check your guide as well, just so you know what the perfect time of the year is for your area. In my area, it's I live in zone 7B. So actually, my last frost date is already come and gone for where it's April right now, middle of April. I actually got a little started late this year because I was on vacation. So my plants are probably a little bit month behind, but they'll eventually catch up with that. So I'm not too concerned about that. But I technically could put these outside now into the garden if I really wanted to. But I'm going to let them get a little bit bigger, and just so they're a little bit safe. I always feel a little bit safe when they're just a little bit bigger plants, where I can see them a little bit easier. But I technically could put these out and they probably would grow just fine. If you do like this video, please give us a green thumbs up. Let us know that we're making great content for you. Also, hit that subscribe button down below and hit the bell so you get notified of any new videos that we do have. Also, we do have a website somewhere down there. The link's down in the description below, and that'll give you just some other tips and everything. Well, I'll see you in the next video.